Hello, welcome to Strange Planet. I've always been, believe it or not, I know I talk about Star Wars a lot, but I'm also a Star Trek fan. I would admit I'm not a Trekkie. I'm more of a Star Wars geek, but I have a deep, deep, deep love for Captain James T. Kirk and the original crew of the Starship Enterprise. You know, I remember watching on Channel 11. I grew up here in the Bronx, so that's where they played it. On Channel 11, the reruns every Saturday night. I used to watch it in my grandmother's house and watch Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock and Dr. McCoy try to talk through all these issues and these crazy challenges that they would go through and stuff like that. All the monsters that they would encounter, all the weird people they would encounter in their travels to new worlds to boldly go where no man has gone before. And then there was that music. Oh yeah, there was that theme music. Oh, I can't do it. But in any case, it was an awesome series. And then when the movies came out, starting with Star Trek, the motion picture. I mean, I didn't go see it in the movie theater. In perspective, I'm kind of glad I didn't because I would have been like... But Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan really, really was like, oh my god, Spock died. Hope nobody out there is saying, yo, Spock died? And then Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. That was pretty good. And then Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, where they used the Klingon bird of prey to go back into time to save the humpback whales. Quite an environmental friendly episode that was. And then there was Star Trek 5, where, and I forgot the name of it, but it's where Spock and his brother team up to try to find God at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. Then there was Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country, the future. It was to be their last film as the original crew of the Starship Enterprise. Of course, by this point, we were already watching Star Trek The Next Generation on TV with Captain Picard and Data and Counselor Troy as they continued on the Enterprise. But it wasn't the same Enterprise. They kept on upgrading and upgrading and upgrading and upgrading. Here's the rundown. The original Enterprise from the TV series from the 1960s got refitted in Star Trek The Motion Picture, so it looked really awesome. But it was still the same ship. That ship got messed up in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. That same ship got completely blown up in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. Then they gave Kirk and the crew a brand new Enterprise that looked just like it, Enterprise A, at the end of the voyage home. That was the ship they stuck with all the way through the rest of their movie series. In Star Trek The Next Generation, they had the Enterprise E. They already went through a certain, it's been a good 75 years between Kirk and Jean-Luc Picard and these guys. So the Enterprise went through at least a couple of other incarnations before Enterprise E. That ship got messed up in Generations. Then Jean-Luc Picard got the Enterprise E. That was the last time we've heard of it. Of course, there was that TV series called Enterprise that didn't do too well, that had an earlier version of the Starship Enterprise before the one that we all knew and loved from the original series. Hold up, wait a minute, and then here it came. J.J. Abrams revitalized and brought back Star Trek. Yeah, and what was that design? This baby right here. This was awesome. To me, it looks like this is a model, obviously, that I have. It feels like the way it is, it's kind of like a cross between, in my opinion, a cross between the original Enterprise from the original TV series and the one from the movies that Kirk and these guys had. So it was kind of like, it's kind of like a difference there. J.J. Abrams, I don't know whether or not he was part of the helping out in the design of this, but he knocked it out of the park with that movie. When Star Trek came on with Chris Pine as Captain James T. Kirk and these other people as Spock and all that, and you see their beginnings and everything like that, oh my goodness, forget about it. It was beautiful. It was so well made. And then the second movie, which was called Into Darkness, in my opinion, wasn't as good as the original one, but it was still very good, very entertaining. It had Khan, right? Benedict Cumberbatch played Khan, but it was such a different kind of Khan. And let's not forget, Leonard Nimoy, God rest his soul, came in as a cameo in the first and second films. It was amazing how they did that. Then, of course, there was Star Trek Beyond, which came out last year. And J.J. Abrams produced that one. He didn't direct it. He was busy with something else. That one wasn't as good as Into Darkness, but it was very eye-popping. Very all over the place. It was directed by the same guy who does the Fast and the Furious movies. So it was like, just think of the Starship Enterprise with wheels. It was kind of that fast-paced and that crazy. So, but it was good. I have a copy of it on Blu-ray. I said, I gotta have this. It's eye candy. It's beautiful. It's like amazing to watch on a big 4K screen. It's like you can't like take your eyes off it. What amazes me about the Star Trek universe, as opposed to the Star Wars universe, is that the Star Trek universe kind of like brings us a little bit closer to home. First of all, it's based on planet Earth, United Federation of Planets, sending out ships to explore space. This has been an endeavor of the human species for a long, long time. As a matter of fact, the first space shuttle, the prototype, was called Enterprise for that same purpose. It was part of the significance that we try to like embrace as a species, to go out and explore other worlds. Right now, we're still kind of like doing just our own solar system, and that takes forever. Yeah, it really does. I'll do another Strange Planet on that, but I don't want to turn this into a Cosmos episode. Sorry, Carl. But the truth of the matter is, Star Trek spoke to many generations. The original series spoke to the generation of the time, which was the 1960s. Women's rights, civil rights. We think about the characters in that movie and how in that TV series and how it portrayed that. And then when we were into the 80s, it went into another kind of dynamic. The 80s was a time when movies was just blowing up all over the place, and there were like sequels after sequels. That's when the sequel explosion took place. It took place really more in the 80s than it did in the 70s. It happened in the 70s too, but it really went off in the 80s. And Star Trek was not immune to that. So it was pretty good. And they went well into the 90s with their other versions, their new enemies that came about in the series, like the Borg. That was some creepy stuff. Remember when Jean-Luc Picard became one with the main hive? Oof. I don't have a lot of Star Trek memorabilia, but I intend on getting more. But I had to get this when I saw it. This is obviously the Enterprise from the movie that J.J. Abrams made. Beautiful device. Beautiful thing. It lights up and everything. Look. Maneuvering thrusters, Mr. Sulu. It talks to you. It has this. Check it out. Whoa. So.
Captain, engineering reports ready for launch.
Going on warp speed. No, I'm not gonna do that. That wouldn't have been warp speed. That would have been broken model ship. So what do you think of Star Trek? What do you think of the Starship Enterprise? Are you a Trekkie? Are you a Star Wars geek like myself? Talk to me. Let me know. Comment below, all you guys and gals out there. And just let me know what you think of the Starship Enterprise as it orbits around the planet Earth, as it orbits around Strange Planet.